American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
So now I'm obsessed with time. Come on, tell me about the time. Had it all in my hand tonight. Had the time of my life. When the words all come down like blues on Tuesdays come down. Throw it all.
Welcome to episode 114.
We'll just insert it later.
Oh, I will insert it later.
Stop it.
You know what I mean? Of American Timelines. This is the podcast by History for Jerks that brings you history for you, the jerk listener.
Okay.
You've made a good step so far. You've admitted that you're a jerk and you want to brush up on your history. So thank you for being here. It was big of you to admit that you're a jerk and that you want to subscribe to History for Jerks podcast, American Timelines.
All right.
I'm Amy.
Nope. That's Joe and I'm Amy.
Oh, you always got to be Amy.
And
Jeez.
today we're going to talk about 1969.
69, dude. Yeah, we're in a new year. We're coming towards the end of season 4, which feels like we've been in season 4 for 10 seasons.
Yes.
But yeah, we're finally to 1969, the last year of the 60s, if you will. And I'm going to say 69 a lot.
I figured that.
You probably will too, knowing you.
Mm.
You're kind of childish.
You childish.
Yeah. Kind of immature is what I would say.
Oh, all right.
That's how I describe you.
All right. What's first?
Well, first, as we do when we hit a new year,
Yes.
I got a bunch of shit that doesn't really fit in years, but it's just like milestones of 1969, okay? I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
Randolph Smith and Kenneth House patented the battery-powered smoke detector in 1969.
Oh.
So a lot less fires.
Good.
Remember before that, everybody just burned.
Yeah. I mean,
Everything just burned.
yeah. So that's kind of late.
Everybody can have a smoke detector now.
I wonder if they had plug-in smoke detectors
thing about-
before that.
I don't know. Well, maybe they were all electric or something, but battery-powered smoke
But
detectors.
that wouldn't make sense because a lot of fires are electrical, so plug-in smoke detector.
But I mean, think
wouldn't
about it.
work.
Like, we didn't even have smoke detectors, and everybody smoked in bed all the time.
I know.
Like-
And everything was made of wood.
Yeah. If you look at old movies, like, everybody's always smoking in bed. No
Yep.
wonder there was all these fires.
Yeah.
James Brown in 1969 released 5 different songs about popcorn.
What?
Willie Nelson has been playing the same guitar named Trigger since 1969. He's even worn a giant hole in it. That's when he started playing
wow.
Trigger. The term headbanging was first coined during Led Zeppelin's 1969 tour of the U.S.
Really?
That's where headbanging came from.
Okay.
Donald and Doris Fisher opened their clothing store, The Gap, in San Francisco in
yeah.
1969. The top TV shows in 1969 were Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In was number 1 on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 was Gunsmoke on CBS.
Yep.
3 was Bonanza on NBC. 4 was Mayberry RFD on CBS. And 5 was Family Affair.
Gosh, there's so many like you got the westerns, and then you got Andy Griffith,
Yeah, and
which is like
and those are-
old-timey.
those are both on their way. The westerns and the rural. Remember, I said they had a push
Yeah.
against rural TV.
Yeah.
Like that was the end of it. So once that got canceled, they got rid of Beverly Hillbillies
Green
and
Acres
Green
and
Acres
stuff,
and all
yeah.
that shit. It was just like, even though they were popular, they just like moved away from it, I guess.
Huh.
A musician named Jim Sullivan recorded an album called UFO, which featured strange lyrics about leaving his family and being abducted by aliens. And then Sullivan disappeared 6 years later without a trace.
Really?
The only piece of evidence being his abandoned car found on a desert road.
Ooh, I could have done that story.
Yeah, I think he was abducted like in the 70s, I think, so you should look that up. And I never saw him again.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that weird that he
Yeah.
wrote a song? There was also a commercially sold adult board game in 1969 called Chug-a-Lug.
Oh.
It involved smoking, beer, and marijuana.
Did it really?
Yeah, the purpose was to win the most alcoholic unanimous cards. and penalties involved liquor store runs, removing clothing, or not being allowed to go to the bathroom.
That we got to look on eBay, and
So
we got to get a.
they have
that.
They have it on Amazon.
They do?
But it's not like it's sold out.
Oh,
There's a couple I found on eBay. I think they're like $1 million. But
Ugh.
here's a description of it from Amazon.
that would be fabulous to have.
Chug-a-Lug is an exciting adult game of skill and fortune for 2 to 6 players.
Skill.
Chug-a-Lug tests your drinking skill as well as your ability to cope with unusual and hilarious situations. This is the most intense drinking game you will ever find and has the most insane rules. During the playing of the game, no player may take a drink, go to the bathroom, or light a cigarette unless specifically instructed to during the playing process. If any player deviates from this rule, a penalty of 4 drinks is levied against that player.
Whoa.
If a player is smoking and lands on a light-up square, he must light up again and smoke both cigarettes at the same time.
Oh my God.
This is in good vintage condition. This is the description. This is in good vintage condition. The box is faded and has some wear and a couple taped corners, but the game itself appears to have been only lightly played and still has its original 1969 2-pack of Alka-Seltzer.
It comes with Alka-Seltzer?
Yeah, I guess.
That's pretty good.
I have my own copy at home, and this that we will never sell or actually play, at least not according to the rules. Very hard to find the 1969 edition. Have fun and stay safe. Ships quickly from Santa Cruz. I guess that was on...
Well, how much did they want for
I
it?
can't remember, but that was on eBay, or that was on Amazon. You know how Amazon sells, used stuff sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should buy it.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Just reading that description, though, I really wish we had it in college.
I know.
When we would actually do those things.
We need to get it for the kids' college. So
Yeah.
we can give it to them.
Give it to them. Hey, you're off to college.
Here you go.
Here you go. And here's a pack of cigarettes. I have a feeling our kids aren't going to be. They're not big partiers like us, I don't think. Audrey might be, but Henry's definitely not going to be a partier, I don't think.
Yeah, he probably won't. He'll probably be a gamer or something.
Yeah. You never know. Everybody goes through a party phase a little bit. Well, do they? Maybe they don't.
I don't know.
Some people
That's a good
don't at all.
That's a good question. I was always
I mean, you and I...
only around other people that were full-blown alcoholics, probably.
Yeah, we were partiers.
Yeah.
You and I were both partiers, and then we got together and then continued our party into Chicago.
And it got into a big party.
Yeah, we just partied all the time.
I know.
We're partiers. Yeah, we're just partiers. That's what we do. Hey, do you guys party?
We party.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Although that's code for other things sometimes.
Yeah, now it's probably
That means
swinging.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people are disappointed that you and I haven't swung. So it's kind of
I don't think anybody's disappointed about that, honey.
No, I just think it's what people expect of us. So I think we need to start getting out there.
All right. What's next?
It's never too late.
I don't know how we got on this.
We're in our mid to late 40s. It's never too late to start swinging.
Gross. Gross.
Okay, January 1st, 1969, the number 1 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes defeated the number 2 ranked USC Trojans 27-16 before a crowd of 102,063 fans to win college football's Rose Bowl and the recognition by the NCAA as college football's national champion.
Oh.
That same day, North Vietnam released 3 American prisoners of war to a 5-member U.S. Army team at a rice paddy field near South Vietnam's border of Cambodia. A 4th had escaped captivity from the Viet Cong the day before. One of the POW specialists for James Brigham of Ocala, Florida, died less than 3 weeks later at a Washington hospital after surgery for a brain abscess.
Oh, man.
I think the guy that escaped was that guy
that
talked
we
about
already talked about.
the last that was going to be killed anyway. And that same day, Vern Troyer was born. You know, that little guy who played Mini-Me?
I know.
How tall do you think he is? Vern Troyer.
I don't know.
2'8".
Okay.
Imagine only being 2'8". I'm 2'8".
No.
Anyway, yeah, he was born in Sturgis, Michigan. Do you know who Barton McLean is?
No.
Oh, he died that same day. So Barton McLean was an actor. Might be Vern Troyer reincarnated.
Can we move on?
January 2nd, 1969 was a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Australian media baron Rupert Murdoch purchased the largest selling British Sunday newspaper, The News of the World. As shareholders of the News voted to accept his bid over that of British book publisher Robert Maxwell. Murdoch would purchase newspapers in the U.S. in the 1970s, notably the New York Post, and then enter television in the 1980s with the founding of the Fox News Network. It's weird that you can just buy a news network.
I know.
And then just make it lie.
Turn it into a propaganda network.
It's weird that you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money in that, I guess.
Yeah.
And Christy Turlington was also born that day. And January 3rd, 1969 was a Friday. And nothing happened that day or the 4th or the 5th, except there was people born. I'm not going to say it, even though on the 5th Marilyn Manson was born. I'm not even going to say it. He was born in Canton, Ohio.
No, stop.
January 6th was a Monday of 1969. Allegheny Airlines Flight 737 crashed on its approach to Bradford, Pennsylvania, killing 11 people on board during a multi-stop flight from Washington, D.C. to Detroit. The accident came less than 2 weeks after the fatal crash on Christmas Eve of Allegheny Airlines Flight 736 on its way to Bradford as part of the same route, killing 20 people.
Jeez, I wonder what's going on with that route.
That's the same day that Richard Nixon was officially elected President of the United States.
Yes.
And Norman Reedus was born, a guy who's in Walking Dead. And that brings us to Tuesday, January 7th, 1969.
Yes.
And I'm under the impression that my lovely bride, who's got it going on, has
Stop
something
it.
to share with us.
All right.
And I'm not only listening because you're beautiful. I'm listening because you're smart.
You
and
don't. You
fun
don't listen.
Wait a minute.
You don't listen ever.
I do find you attractive.
All right. I'm going to talk about the murder of Jane Britton.
Oh, God. A murder? Jesus.
Yes.
What is this, a true crime podcast?
And I got my information from Mental Floss, Boston25news.com, and Wikipedia.
Mental Floss, Boston 20... What? Boston what?
25news.com.
Boston25news.com. Mental Floss.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
So Jane Britton was born in 1945 in Boston.
Boston.
She grew up in Needham, Massachusetts, just a few miles outside the city.
Need 'em.
In
Got 'em.
1969, she was studying anthropology at Harvard
69, dude.
and
Harvard.
living in an apartment complex on University Avenue.
All right.
The building sits just outside Harvard Square to the west, not far from the Charles River.
I'll buy it.
On the morning of January 7th, all of the graduate students, the anthropology graduate students...
Now, anthropology is insects, correct?
No. It's studying the people of the past.
Well, what's an anthropod? That's a bug, right? Arachnid?
What? All
Okay.
right.
Studying
Anyway,
the people of the
they
past.
were-
Isn't people of the past history?
It's
Whoa.
the study of people from the past.
Jeez. I don't have to fly off the handle. I'm not smart.
All right, anthropology graduate students
Okay.
at Harvard University all gathered to take their general exams.
Okay.
But Jane wasn't there.
Uh-oh.
And it wasn't like her to miss a test, especially one that was this important. Her parents her dad was a Radcliffe College vice president, and a medieval history scholar was her mom.
A medieval history scholar was
Yep,
the mom.
Was the mom. And
Sounds hot.
They had raised her to take her education seriously, and she had graduated magna cum laude from Radcliffe College in 1967.
Wow, that's impressive.
At Harvard, she served as a teaching assistant, and she helped discover the remains of a Neolithic community during an archaeological dig in Iran.
Well, that's huge.
And-
That's huge. But wait a minute. That's really a big deal.
Yes.
But did you say that she's graduated cum laude at the same college that her dad is the president of?
Radcliffe College.
Radcliffe
yes.
College?
Yes.
That seems a little fishy to me.
Why?
Like, nepotism much?
What? She went to school there where her dad worked.
Oh, her dad's the president and suddenly she's cum laude?
All right. Anyway.
Methinks there doth
Okay,
protest
shush.
too much.
Shush.
Or something.
All right. So her classmate and boyfriend, James Humphreys, called her.
He did it.
He called her, but she didn't answer. So he set off for her fourth floor apartment at 6 University Road and knocked on her door it was just after noon. Again,
Okay.
there was no answer. And his knocking was loud enough to draw Britton's neighbor and fellow anthropology student Donald Mitchell from his nearby apartment.
So he's into bugs too.
And the two men decided to enter Britton's unlocked residence.
Oh.
They found her laying face down on her bed in a blue nightgown, her body partially obscured by blankets and a fur coat.
A fur coat in bed? That doesn't add up.
Mitchell uncovered her head, realized she was caked in blood, and
Ugh.
promptly called the Cambridge police, who upon arrival asked medical examiner Dr. Arthur McGovern to come to Britton's apartment as well.
Dr. Arthur McCoven, this was all going good till he showed up.
McGovern soon confirmed the worst. Britton was dead. It was
Well.
obvious that she had been the victim of a brutal murder,
Yep.
but there was no murder weapon in sight.
No
With-
candlestick, no rope, no
With
wrench.
no weapon, no eyewitnesses, and the public demanding answers, detectives embarked on an arduous and baffling hunt for the truth, one that would last half a century.
Whoa. That's 50 years. That's half a century.
That's right.
Boom.
So
Math
from,
genius
from
over
the
here.
shape of the head wounds, the murder weapon had a point of some
Oh,
sort, but
okay.
investigators could not determine exactly what had been used.
I would guess it's one of those. What are those things that they old knights swung around like a
Medieval
chain
mace?
and a mace? Yeah, with a spiky ball on it. I think it's that.
The police said it was something sharp like a hatchet or cleaver.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Later, they speculated that a 4 by 6 inch stone with a pointed end, which was a souvenir Britton had brought home from the Iranian dig,
Ooh.
had been used.
Really?
It was missing.
That's a shame.
And
Maybe it's a cursed Iranian stone from
maybe.
the old days that whoever possesses it
from like
gets
Mesopotamia
murdered
or something.
by it.
It was missing, and the state police found no weapon in the apartment. However, they did find a set of fingerprints which matched neither Britton or anyone else investigators knew of had been in the apartment.
Somebody was there.
So the night before her murder,
Wait a second. Before we just assume somebody else was there, let's think about this. It's a college town, right?
yes,
So kids change residences every year, if not every 2 or 3 years.
right,
How many kids were in there? How
I
many
know.
fingerprints? Think about how well people really
I
even
know,
clean. Any
Yeah.
apartment right now in a college town, you go in there,
The
there's probably
fingerprints.
hundreds of thousands of people's fingerprints
Yeah.
because there's that many gross people. And think how much dead skin of different people are in
All right,
everybody's
You're getting
house.
a little off track
That's
here.
gross.
So the night before the murder,
Yeah. Murder Eve.
Britton and her boyfriend Humphreys joined some classmates for dinner at the Acropolis restaurant and ice skating at Cambridge Common.
That sounds like a fun night out.
She and Humphreys retired to her apartment for hot cocoa around 10:30 p.m.
Man, hot
And-
cocoa and
And when Humphreys left an hour later, Britton visited the Mitchells to retrieve her cat, Fuzzy, and enjoy a glass of sherry before returning to her own apartment at around 12:30 a.m.
Well, that was nice that the Mitchells were watching her cat Fuzzy.
Though Donald Mitchell and his wife Jill hadn't seen or heard anything suspicious, 2 other residents had. A neighbor heard noises on Britton's fire escape that night, and someone else reported seeing a 6-foot-tall, 170-pound man running in the street below at 1:30 a.m.
So if you see a guy running at 1:30 a.m., are you like, that guy's 6 foot, 170 pounds? Look at that 6 foot, 170 pound guy.
Well, no, but you know, they to say like how tall did he look from the
They were
window,
kind of
and
guessing.
they can like
They were like
mathematically,
thin or boned, or
yeah.
like if you saw me, would you guess I'm 170 pounds?
I don't know. They show you pictures, and they say what was the most
okay.
like,
And
then
they
can-
know
yeah,
who weighs what.
yeah.
Because I'm definitely not 170 pounds.
Right. All right. So, unfortunately, neither of these 2 testimonies gave authorities much to investigate, and they couldn't even be certain that the murderer had, in fact, used the fire escape to gain access into Britton's apartment.
Okay.
They saw no evidence of forced entry, and her front door had been unlocked.
Huh.
As police continued their inspection of Jane's apartment, Dr. George Katsas autopsied Britton's body at Watson Funeral Home and determined her cause of death to be the result of multiple blunt injuries of the head with fractures of the skull and contusions and lacerations of the brain.
God, imagine how bad that would hurt.
It was later confirmed that Britton had also been the victim of sexual assault, and a
of
toxicology
course.
report proved that since the sherry had never entered her bloodstream, she must have died within an hour of having returned to her apartment that night.
Oh, shit.
That's how they can tell those things.
That's how you tell how quick. One thing I would say is that I don't think that the door being unlocked is really that big of a deal. Because don't you
Right.
think everybody kept the doors unlocked
Probably.
in the 60s?
Yeah. The fact that Britton's door was unlocked caused something of a public outcry because it wasn't the first time that someone had been killed in the building.
Oh,
Just
well, maybe
6
you
years,
would lock it then.
Yeah, just 6 years earlier, Boston University student Beverly Sammons had been stabbed to death in her apartment by Albert DeSalvo, better known as the Boston Strangler.
Oh, we talked about that guy,
We
didn't
did.
we? Huh.
After Britton's murder, the Harvard Crimson reported that the front doors of the littered and dingy building didn't even have locks, and that
Oh.
Britton's apartment door was often left unlocked not out of negligence, but because it was almost impossible to lock.
Oh, no. Broken?
Students had allegedly complained about the lousy security in the past, though a university representative denied those claims.
So do you think when she picked that apartment, everybody's like, hey, that's where the Boston Strangler murdered somebody.
Yeah, I don't
want to
know.
go there. And then she was probably like, well, what are the chances of another murder happening?
Maybe.
And then here it goes.
Or maybe she was like me and she was like, ooh, tell me more.
Ooh, I love it. I love true crime.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a genre then.
Right. Meanwhile, police were considering the possibility that someone from the university had committed the crime. They started questioning members of Harvard's anthropology department, some of whom were Britton's companions on the dig in Iran during the previous summer.
Ooh.
Many of Britton's friends could not imagine anyone wanting to kill her, though.
She seems sweet.
The Cambridge police nonetheless filmed her January 10th funeral service in case someone in attendance had been involved.
Oh,
and gave
and see if they look
away by their behavior.
Yeah, by acting suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody
No.
seem suspicious?
Not that, no.
It's weird. This murder happened the same day that the trial began in the case of Sirhan.
Oh, right.
for
We
killing
talked about
RFK.
that. Lie detector tests were administered to Humphreys and the Mitchells, and detectives talked to or attempted to talk to anyone mentioned in her diary and an old phone directory.
Yeah.
While canvassing the crime scene, police had found traces of red ochre, which is a powder-like clay, and it was sprinkled both on Britton's body and around her apartment. Since red ochre was once used in ancient Persian burial rites, investigators were looking for a suspect likely to have an in-depth knowledge of the subject.
Huh.
It wasn't the only reason that Jane's former companion seemed like a promising place to start. According to some media reports published in the wake of the murder, there had also been hostility among the 9 participants.
Ooh.
But as the interrogations failed to produce any viable suspects, investigators were forced to conclude that the media reports had been exaggerated.
Probably.
Yeah, they said there wasn't. They didn't. Might have been complaints about too much tuna fish, but that was about as far as it
Too
went.
much tuna fish? I'm going to murder you. I've had enough tuna fish.
And,
you must die now.
The presence of that red ochre also turned out to be insignificant.
I was going to say
It was
probably
later determined it was a residue from one of her paintings that she liked to paint.
Okay.
So with the bone-dry suspect pool, police focused instead on evidence from the crime scene.
Okay.
Though they had managed to find traces of semen left behind by the killer during the sexual assault,
Gross.
the existing technology wasn't advanced enough for them to
So
use
what
that
you do-
DNA to locate a match.
You put away the semen and you wait 50 years, right?
They
for
also
DNA?
discovered that a sharp stone, perhaps sharp enough to kill, Britton had received as an archaeological souvenir from the Mitchells had gone missing. Oh, I already said that. Okay, then just 2 days after Britton's body was found, Cambridge Chief of Police James F. Reagan announced a blackout on any further news of the investigation until he himself decided to release more information.
Yeah, don't put that out because then if somebody knows something...
Well, and also there's inaccuracies in the media coverage of the crime. He wouldn't elaborate,
false
but he did
news.
give one last parting update. They had located the sharp stone.
Oh, they located it. But again, it's a lamestream media getting it wrong again.
Yep. As for any other details, like where they found it, for example, or if it happened to be smeared with blood, he didn't say.
He didn't say.
The public was left to assume that the potential murder weapon was yet another dead end.
Okay.
So in the absence of any official updates, people looked back on Britton's life both to honor her memory and search for some clue that they might have missed. She was a bright, spirited young woman who rode horses, played the piano, and decorated her apartment walls with drawings of animals.
Well, and made and painted. Like, she's a very interesting, vibrant individual, and I'm upset by her passing.
And she wanted to become an archaeologist.
See, I told you.
After her graduation. Some considered the many accounts of Britton's all-around winning personality proof that her assailant must have been a complete stranger. The police have a mass of material, and I think it will all lead to the conclusion that no one would want to kill Jane, her friend Ingrid Kirch said.
Ingrid Kirch is onto something here.
Others,
I'm with her on
however,
this.
simply generated the kind of ugly gossip that so often rears its head during tragedies. One popular conspiracy theory suggested that Britton's murder was connected to her alleged involvement in the counterculture movement of the time.
What was the counterculture movement of the time? Like
the 1969, counterculture.
Oh, the 60s counterculture movement, not like counterculture to the culture that was happening. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know. She knew a lot of odd people in Cambridge and the hangers-on and acid heads who you would not call young, wholesome Harvard and Radcliffe types, is what an unnamed friend had said.
All right, that seems right. But everybody probably knew a bunch of weirdos in the 60s, in 69 especially.
Yeah, but time wore on without any news from the
69.
police department, and eventually even the foundationless rumors petered out.
Peter.
The murder of Jane Britton became another cold case. Her parents passed away, her mother Ruth in 1978 and her father Jay Boyd in 2002 without knowing the truth about their daughter's tragic death.
Wow, her father lived a long time without her mother.
Yeah, he did.
Huh.
Evidence
Poor
from
guy.
the case was well preserved, though.
Okay, good. Even the semen?
Yeah.
good. Okay,
When
we're gonna
DNA
find out who did
testing
it.
became available to investigators in the late 1980s,
Yes.
they eventually tested the semen left by the killer.
Yes.
It didn't-
Save that semen. Always save the semen, everybody.
It did not produce any matches to the profiles of known offenders at the time,
Wah, wah, wah.
nor did a 2006 retest.
Oh.
In the early 2010s, several writers began looking into the case and requesting copies of the investigatory records.
Investigatory
Then-
requests.
In 2017,
Yes, that's not too long ago.
several public requests for the district attorney's office to publicly release the case file prompted investigators to pore over the materials once again.
Now, these people just want to do it for probably forensic files
Yeah.
or some podcast, some
They
stupid true
decided-
crime podcast with two idiots.
They decided to test the DNA samples using the latest forensic technology.
Yes, and?
Incredibly, they found a match.
Oh, shit. Really? Who?
Michael Sumter, a convicted murderer and rapist who had died in 2001.
I knew it was Michael Sumter. He was
Sumter
like a
lived
top
in Cambridge as
list.
a young child,
Yeah.
dated a girl in Cambridge in the mid-60s, and in 1967 was working on Arrow Street, just a mile from Jane Britton's apartment. He was arrested and convicted of physically assaulting a woman he met at the Harvard Square MBTA station 3 years after Jane's murder.
Really?
But in 1975, Sumter was out of jail and raped a woman in her Boston apartment. It was
Man.
then that he was sent to prison for 15 to 20 years.
At least he went to prison, but not till later.
Then, just 13 months after he was paroled, Sumter died of cancer in 2001.
Well, hopefully he is in hell.
After his death, his DNA profile was matched to the rape and murder of 23-year-old Ellen Rutchick in her Beacon Street apartment in 1972.
Beacon Street is where Cheers is.
He
in
was also
Boston.
connected to the 1973 rape and murder of 24-year-old Mary Lee McLean in her Mount Vernon Street apartment.
Really?
He was also eventually connected to a 1985 rape, which police say he committed after escaping from work release. So he couldn't help himself, I guess.
But he raped a lot of people, but
Yeah.
didn't murder a lot of people.
Well, no, he had those rapes and murders the first couple I told you about.
So how come this guy's not like got a name or he's not exciting to
No.
people like you who love this shit? Like, why aren't you guys calling him the
I don't know.
Beacon Street, same street as Cheers murderer?
Without new DNA from Sumter to verify their findings, they turned to the next closest thing, a DNA sample from his brother, who they located through services like Ancestry.com.
Oh, Ancestry will help, yeah.
The sample from Sumter's brother matched the original sample, ruled out 99.92% of the male population,
Wow.
and proved within reason that Michael Sumter was in fact responsible for the rape and murder of Jane Britton. According to the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, Sumter was
Middlesex.
no stranger to Cambridge. We already said that he lived there as a child,
Yeah.
worked just a mile, and was convicted of assaulting a woman in the area 3 years after the
On
murder.
Beacon Street, the same street as Cheers.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay. I accept your apology, and so do our listeners.
So then in November 2018, Middlesex District Attorney Marion Ryan confirmed that after nearly 50 years, Britton's case was closed.
Oh, November 2018, the same month that I pooped over there in that bathroom.
All right, stop that.
Well, you didn't give me that date, so I
A
couldn't look it up.
half-century of mystery and speculation has clouded the brutal crime that shattered Jane's promising young life and our family, Britton's brother, Reverend Boyd Britton, said on a statement.
You're a reverend, huh?
The DNA evidence match may be all we ever have as a conclusion. Learning to understand and forgive remains a challenge. So investigators say Sumter had no connection to Jane Britton, and they probably did not know each other.
No, it's just like a random killing.
And that's the murder of Jane Britton.
Wow. Well, that was a ride. I can't believe we found somebody. And it's
Yeah.
weird that he murdered somebody on Beacon Street. That's where Cheers is. And Michael Sumter is his name. And Sumner is the name of Diane's fiance at the beginning of the first episode of Cheers. So,
there you go.
yeah, it's real
Bing, bang, bong.
Real bing bang and bong. January 8th, 1969 was a Wednesday. Two FBI agents, Anthony Palmisano and Edwin R. Woodruff, were shot and killed in an apartment building in southeast Washington, D.C. while trying to apprehend Billy Austin Bryant, who had robbed the Citizen Bank in nearby Oxon Hill, Maryland.
Oh.
Bryant was apprehended the same day, only 2 hours after he was placed on the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list. That's the shortest amount of time between placement on the list and capture.
Okay.
Woodruff was the first African-American FBI agent to die in the line of duty.
You said duty.
And then on Thursday, January 9th, 1969, New York Jets quarterback Joe Namath accepted an award from the Miami Touchdown Club 3 days before Super Bowl III And he said in his after-dinner remarks to the crowd that he guaranteed that his team would defeat the venerable Baltimore Colts in the World Championship game that year. I don't know if you know, but you never guarantee, like everybody's like, you never guarantee victory because it's like a jinx.
My mind has wandered way far away now.
So Joe Namath was the quarterback of the Jets, and he guaranteed victory. What? Were you?
I was thinking about how bad a Tyrannosaurus Rex would be at giving a hand job.
Okay, that's what you were thinking about. So
Yep.
now I realize what you're going through when you're talking about murders, like, because those are the type of things that I think about. We are going on and on about somebody being raped, like you're just graphically talking about rape, women being raped, and here's how they get raped, and rape is great. And while you're doing that, I'm thinking about stuff like that because I can't handle it. But this is like a Super Bowl thing. Anyway, Joe Namath guaranteed a victory, and they actually won. So, boom.
Boom.
January 10th, 1969 was a Friday. The publishers of the Saturday Evening Post announced that the weekly magazine would cease publication after almost 148 years.
Oh.
Discontinuing after its February 8th issue. The Saturday Evening Post.
Yep. That was a big...
150 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It's a long-ass time. And then Saturday, January 11th, 1969, U.S. Army Special Forces Reserve Officer Robert Helmy used an unloaded shotgun to hijack United Airlines Flight 459 to Cuba, diverting it from its Jacksonville to Miami flight and forcing a landing in Havana. In a month with regular hijackings of U.S. flights, Helmy's case stands out because he was the first successful hijacker to be prosecuted in the United States. Immediately after he landed in Cuba, he was arrested by the Castro government and would spend 109 days in solitary confinement in a Cuban jail before being deported to Canada, which in turn would return him to American authorities on May 5th. A jury would find him not guilty of all charges on November 20th, accepting his defense of temporary insanity, making Helmy the first skyjacker of a commercial airline anywhere to be acquitted at a trial.
Wow.
There's a lot of skyjackers.
Crazy.
Remember that? So
I know.
And then Sunday, January 12th,
and he spent 109 days in a Cuban prison.
Yeah, and so hopefully
confinement.
you get that word out that, hey, you're going to be in solitary confinement for 109 days if you keep doing this shit.
Yeah, or something.
I still wish they would have done that fake airport idea.
Yeah,
in
I know.
Miami, and then just had a fake
just have them fly.
Sunday, January 12th, 1969 was the day of the Super Bowl. The American League champion New York Jets, led by brash quarterback Joe Namath, who had guaranteed victory, upset the NFL champion Baltimore Colts 16-7 to win Super Bowl III in Miami. This was the first one that they actually called the Super Bowl. I think the first two, they called them like in retrospect. That I guess. Led Zeppelin released the first Led Zeppelin album in the United States that same day.
All right.
And since we're talking about the Super Bowl, you want to guess the cost of the Super Bowl ad in 1968?
God, I have no idea.
$55,000.
Okay. Seems like a bargain.
That's pretty cheap.
Bargain basement.
$55,000. We can't afford not to buy one.
I know it.
And then on Monday, January 13th, 1969, a woman named Vickie Jones was arrested for impersonating Aretha Franklin in concert.
Was she in concert?
In concert.
What did she do? Get up on the stage?
Her impersonation was so convincing that nobody in the audience asked for a refund. It was that good.
Whoa.
So she's that good. So I had to read this. There's an article by Jeff Maysh, Maysh, in Smithsonian Magazine from July 2018. You can find that online. So Vickie Jones, I'll just summarize it for you.
Yes.
The thing is, back then, before social media and before everybody had tabs on everyone at all times, there were a lot of impersonations. Like there were a lot of tribute artists, but then, so kind of in the South, there was like James Brown impersonators and Aretha Franklin and stuff, and a lot of black clubs and stuff. Like people couldn't afford to see the big stars. But then there started to be a lot of lying, like tickets. Like you could go see Aretha for $7 or something.
Yeah.
And say, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
But there's no way people could verify it because there's no, now there's social media. Everyone's like, no, Aretha Franklin's in Detroit right now. That can't be her. You know what it is. So now Vickie Jones has a big, long story. And according to this article, which kind of sums up a whole bunch of other articles on the topic, she was sort of this guy who was a James Brown impersonator.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his name exactly, but he kind of roped her into this. Like, she was very poor and had children that she needed to try to support. So she would leave the kids with her mom and go with this guy. And she says that he originally roped her into touring in Florida and stuff as herself. Like, you're going to be Vickie Jones. You're just so good.
Yeah.
And then once he got her places, she found out that they're billing her as Aretha Franklin. And she was like, couldn't get out of it. And then he was like, held her captive and said he's going to, she can't leave she can't leave this hotel room. She has to eat these hamburgers, all this stuff. Like, that's all she can eat is hamburgers. He was just feeding her hamburgers, I guess.
What?
Anyway, so she said she was kind of like held captive and like she couldn't see her kids and all this stuff. And he would do whatever to her if she didn't get out. So said she didn't want to do it, but once she get on stage, she would just like get so excited, and she was so good at Aretha that she would just let it go, and then she'd feel bad about it again. So they finally caught her in on this day, January 13th. I can't remember exactly where it was, somewhere in Florida. I think near
Fort Lauderdale or something?
Yeah, I think it's near Sarasota or something. But they finally got her. But Aretha Franklin didn't. She said, "Let that poor girl go." Didn't want her. So, and then at that time, this gal had a lot of similarities with Aretha. Like, Aretha was super poor. I don't know if you know that. Like, Aretha had her first child at 12 years old.
Wow.
So this lady too, and her kids, like, she wasn't around for her kids and everything. And so, they uncovered it and they realized it wasn't her doing. This guy put her up to it, and some lawyer somewhere saw her and was like, you know what, she's going to be big. And they actually, Aretha forgave her, didn't want to press charges, and then this guy produced some record with her, like her produce, and like she sold and did well, and she was touring herself and making good money. Again, her kids were still with her grandparents, or her mom, their grandparents. When she went back to her hometown briefly, she was in town, and her kids didn't even know it. She didn't know her kids weren't with her mom anymore. The mom had gotten too tired and gave the kids to her ex-husband, who was an asshole and used to beat her and all this stuff.
Jeez.
So the kids happen to see her in a restaurant, and they go in and see her, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's mom, that's mom!" And her little boys, and they're like 8 years old or something, and she sees them again, and is like, can't believe it, didn't know any of that was happening. She was so heartbroken and loved them so much that she was like, she gave up her career.
Oh, wow.
It was like, I just want to be with my babies, and just was a mom and got rid of her whole career and everything, didn't care about it anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder how she supported herself.
Well, she made some good money then, but I think she just, I did read she got a job doing something. I can't remember.
Okay.
Anyway, but yeah, it was a really good story, so I would recommend reading that in Smithsonian Magazine by Jeff Maish. He does a good job putting it all together and summarizing it. But it's like it was a whirlwind of a story.
It's pretty good.
I didn't summarize it as eloquently as Jeff Maish.
No, you did a pretty good job, babe.
Jeff Maish is a bad motherfucker, though. Don't you talk bad about Jeff Maish. Monday, January 13th, 1969, Scandinavian Airlines Flight 933 plunged into the Santa Monica Bay off the coast of California, drowning 15 of the 45 people on board. The Douglas DC-8 jet was making its approach to Los Angeles after departing from Seattle, on a flight that had originated at Copenhagen in Denmark, and was nearly 7 miles off course when it descended into the sea. Impacting at 7:21 p.m. local time, 30 survivors were able to evacuate on the airplane's life rafts.
Yipe.
That's the same day that Samsung Electronics was founded in Suwon, South Korea.
Okay.
Those things happen simultaneously. And then Tuesday, January 14th, 1969, an explosion aboard the aircraft carrier U.S. Enterprise near Hawaii killed 27 U.S. Navy men and injured 314 while Dave Grohl was being born. The accident happened during operation of an aircraft engine starter unit and the placement of a cart with 4 Zuni rockets too close to the exhaust port of the starter unit. The hot exhaust detonated one of the Zuni warheads, and the explosion sent shards of metal into the fuel tank of the F-4 Phantom that was being prepared for takeoff. The tank then exploded, causing a fire that ignited the other 3 Zuni rockets, and then causing a chain reaction that set off other bombs and rockets as burning fuel spilled from the flight deck to the hangar deck.
How many people died?
All while Jason Bateman was being born.
did it say?
27
Wow,
and injured 314.
that's crazy.
And did you know that Jason Bateman and Dave Grohl are twins? And January 16th, 1969 was a Thursday. And then, I don't care about that day. I don't have anything.
All right.
Sunday, January 19th, 1969, and the third major plane crash in the U.S. in 2 weeks. United Air Flight 266 crashed into the Pacific Ocean shortly after takeoff from L.A., killing all 38 people on board. A minute before the 6:21 p.m. crash, the captain reported that he had an engine fire and was attempting to return the Boeing 727 to the airport. The plane plunged into the sea about a mile from the crash of SAS Flight 933 less than a week earlier.
God, can you imagine trying to fly and having like all these
Engines on fire.
plane crashes in the news and how
I don't
nerve-wracking?
think. I don't think as many. Oh, of course, not as many people flew.
Yeah,
then.
but still.
And I think a lot less people wanted to fly because I
Yeah.
mean, think about it. Flight wasn't that old. Like it was still
Right.
pretty new.
It
Like,
was.
I'll wait a few
It
years.
was, yeah.
I'll wait till you
It's
got it
kind of a
figured out.
New invention
Like
at
if
this point.
Like once they start taking people to the Mars and stuff, I'll be like, I'm gonna wait a while till you get that figured out before I go to Mars.
I'm never going to Mars. I don't care what they say.
I'm gonna go, but just
No.
after a couple trips. Monday, January 20th, 1969, Richard Nixon was sworn in as the 37th president of the United States. And that will jump to Thursday, January 23rd, 1969, when a rare midwinter tornado killed 29 people as it passed through the predominantly black town of Hazelhurst, Mississippi at 6:25 in the morning.
Wow, that's all bizarre.
Most of the victims were African American. Can you imagine? It's freezing out and it's morning, 6 in the morning, and a tornado comes through in January? That doesn't happen.
That's nutty.
And then Saturday, January 25th, 1969.
Especially in Mississippi. I
In
mean,
Mississippi.
That's not even in the tornado alley or anything.
Isn't it?
Mm-mm.
How do you know?
Tornado alley's like Midwest.
How do you know?
Mississippi's a deep south. You
God
gotta
is
edit
right.
that out.
I'm not editing it. I'm putting it in and I'm
You're
amplifying
splitting.
it. I'm amplifying it. Saturday, January 25th, 1969, on the third day of 9 consecutive days of heavy rainfall in southern Cali, mudslides killed 9 people in their homes
Oh man.
north of Los Angeles in a single day. The final death toll would be 95 people,
God, that'd be an awful way to go
including
too.
57 rain-related traffic accidents, 18 drownings, and 15 mudslides.
I mean, you just
138
you're just
million
drowned
dollars
in mud.
Damage.
Like it gets in, you can't
Yeah, you
stop
just probably-
breathing.
yeah, you probably just
you
breathe it
inhale
all.
Yeah. Ugh.
Mudslide seems like not that bad, but
You're thinking of the ice cream treat.
I think I'm thinking of the shot, the drink.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Anyway, that's the same day that American Broadway dancer Irene Castle died. She was 75. And on Sunday, January 26, 1969, Elvis Presley stepped into American studios in Memphis, Tennessee, recording Long Black Limousine, thus beginning the recording of what would become his landmark comeback sessions for the albums From Elvis in Memphis and Back in Memphis. The sessions yielded the popular and critically acclaimed singles Suspicious Minds,
Yeah.
In the Ghetto, and Kentucky Rain. You like those songs?
I like Suspicious Minds.
I guess. I'm just not an Elvis fan. Really, sorry. And then
I like his
Monday,
old stuff better.
January 27th, 1969, Patton Oswalt was born, while Anukulchandra Chakravarti, an 80-year-old Bengali Indian guru and philosopher, died. So that means they're the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tuesday, January 28th, 1969, the largest oil spill in U.S. history up to that time, took place 5.5 miles off the coast of Santa Barbara, California, during the drilling of the ocean floor by Union Oil from its Platform A offshore rig. January 29th, 1969 was a Wednesday. The Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour premiered on the CBS television network to mixed reviews.
Okay.
And then Thursday, January 30th, 1969, the Beatles gave their last ever public performance at what is now called the Rooftop concert,
Yep.
setting up their instruments on the roof of the London building that served as the corporate headquarters for the recording company Applecore, lasting for 42 minutes.
And it was freezing cold.
The impromptu concert atop the 5-story building at 3 Savile Row was filmed for their 1970 film Let It Be. The group opened with a few run-throughs of their soon-to-be-released single Get Back and its B-side Don't Let Me Down, After 3 more songs and complaints from people in nearby buildings, London police arrived and allowed John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr to perform one final song. The group closed with the song that opened the concert, their last public words being, "Get back to where you once belonged."
How can you imagine
Being the police
complaining
that
to-
the awesome Beatles were
complaining
playing? Yeah.
that the Beatles are playing on the roof nearby? Like, what kind of people called the police and complained about
Now,
that?
I bet traffic was being obstructed. I bet, like, everybody was standing out in the street just watching. You know,
Yeah, but
it's
that would be a
probably
once-in-a-lifetime thing to see.
Yeah, but, you know, people are assholes.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Shit. I can't remember what I was going to say about this. Oh, that reminds me. Last night I was meant to check on this. They were supposed to do, because with the social distancing, everybody, venues and performers don't know what to do right now. They can't perform. They can't tour. The last night they were going to do a rooftop concert in Noda, on top of a game bar. There's like a video game bar, but only 32 cars can fit in the parking lot or something, socially distanced. So, but they were going to live stream it too, I guess, and so with local bands and stuff. So I was just wondering how that went. It reminded me of this, like the Beatles up there. Somebody gonna have a fur coat, because there was a thing where they didn't realize it was going to be as cold as it was. I think,
it
and
was freezing.
and John Lennon it was like a woman's coat. I think it was. I don't even know if it was Yoko Ono's coat or what, but it was like that big furry coat he's wearing, was a woman's coat.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you after that, a lot of men wore coats like that because it was like cool. Anyway.
Started the trend. Well, they started so many trends in the 60s.
Yeah, the Beatles.
Yep.
Anyway, I should have looked up more stuff about that rooftop thing, because I think there's a bunch of lore like that I didn't look up. I should. Maybe the next episode I'll dial it back. But January 31st, 1969 was a Friday, last day of the month. Spiritual master and self-proclaimed God in human form named Meher Baba voluntarily went silent from July 1925 until his death on this day, 1969.
Oh, wow.
That's a long time to be silent. He communicated by means of an alphabet board or by unique hand gestures.
I wonder if he talked to himself ever.
He spent long periods in seclusion, during which time he often fasted. Not fisted, fasted.
Well, that's good.
He also traveled widely, held public gatherings, and engaged in works of charity with lepers and the poor. That same day, the tragedies of 16-year-old David Milgaard, wrongfully convicted of a rape and murder, and of the 20-year-old victim Gail Miller, began a couple hours after Milgaard and 2 friends arrived in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, to visit one of his friends. Miller's body was found at 8:30. A month later, Milgaard's friend told police that he suspected Milgaard, a high school dropout and hippie, of the crime. For the next 22 years, David Milgaard would be incarcerated in a Saskatchewan prison, given a life sentence in 1970 after his conviction, until his release on April 16, 1992. 5 years later, DNA testing would not only exonerate Milgaard, but would identify the person who had committed the crime. Milgaard would receive CDN, $10,000.
That's not that much.
No, $10 million. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say.
There's 3 more zeros after that. Sorry.
Yeah.
In Canadian dollars, in 1999 for the miscarriage of justice. $10 million. I guess that would be enough.
Well, it's a lot of your life.
Yeah, that's
Gone.
trying to do the math. 69 to 90.
Probably were raped in prison. And
Well, can you rape the willing, though?
what?
No, I'm sorry. I don't know what that means. I don't know why I said that.
I don't know what
Do you
that
know,
means
is that a famous story, though? Do you know that guy, the Milgaard thing? That was the one I was going to tell you to do if you didn't have one.
Oh, I didn't know that story, no.
Anyway, that brings us to the end of January of 1969. We're going to come back next episode in February with Tommy James and the Shondells with Crimson and Clover,
I love that song.
and some more hijackings and some other stuff. But right now, that brings us to the end of January. Thank you for listening, Time Heads. We're now into 1969,
It's going to be
dudes.
crazy. There's lots of crazy.
There's so much crazy coming. We got the crazy, what's the guy, the crazy guy, the
Manson.
and we
Yes.
got
We'll have to do a whole episode on him.
a
I
lot of
think.
people 69ing.
No. You got to
What?
cool it.
I do.
Yeah, you got to bring it down.
Time Heads, hit us up at History for Jerks and let us know if you want me to cool it and tone it down or not.
We got to get out of here.
I
Chuck
bet
Berry.
Brent Nelson wants me to tone it down.
Yeah, he does.
Fuck that
he
guy.
really wants you to cool it.
Anyway, thanks for listening. Get out of here, Chuck Berry. Cambridge.
We're so tired of hearing about the 6 days. I said we're so tired of hearing about the 6 days. When you were all along the watchtower, kissing the sky, well, I was barely a glimmer in my young daddy's eye. I said that we're so tired of hearing about the 6 days. One more time, I said we're so tired of hearing about the 6 days. Well, make me shut my mouth now.
Alan asked you, Alice, what's his tempting in town? Now you're stealing coffee morning for the president's ball. Well,
We're so tired of hearing about the 6 days.
American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
Talk about pork.